Welcome back. This is Shaylee from Patterns by Shaylee. It is week number 3 of our Stars of the Forest Quilt Along for a Cause 2020, which means we've made it past our first animal and we're ready for Star 2. And Star 2 is very simple. It assembles in 4 identical sections. If you accidentally put them on a little bit crooked, I can tell you from experience that it is forgiving, and you can accidentally assemble the sections in the wrong order or in the wrong place. But if you do that, your letters and numbers will no longer all be facing the same direction. So just forewarning, you can screw this one up and not have to use your seam ripper, which is everybody's favorite news. With this block, I'm going to be showing you my personal version of chain piecing when it comes to foundation paper piecing. It can be super useful when you're doing basically the same thing, or if you are somebody who doesn't have a good setup and you have to stand up every time you need to cut or iron, you can do big batches of sections all at once. Let's see what it looks like to chain piece when it comes to foundation paper piecing. I have my diagram already done, and I have my sections already assembled and labeled. As you'll notice on the sections, the 1 are all the same, the 2s are all the same, the 3s are all the same, etc. So this makes it extra easy to be able to try and chain piece. And so what we'll do is we'll get the 1s all glued down, and then we will add our 2s all at the same time. Now I'm going to fold along all of my 2 lines. And even if these were different shapes, you could do the same process if you wanted to slide back and forth between your sewing machine and your pressing mat less often, or if you, for instance, have to stand up to go to an ironing board because you're not fully set up for foundation paper piecing. You could piece each section the same way so that you have to move less. Because all of the 2s are white, I can do that all at the same time. And what I like to do is take my white fabric, lay down my 2 section, give myself a little bit of allowance, and then just cut a nice big straight or straight-ish section, and then I can put the rest of the white away, and that helps keep me a little bit neater and more organized. I stack them up not exactly on top of each other, but close enough. That way it's easy to tell which piece goes with which. Now I slide over to the sewing machine and I can run them all through all at once. Since all 4 were sewn at the same time, they're ready to be cut at the same time, which means if you maybe had to go to a separate cutting mat that's not on your table, this will exponentially speed up your process and the amount of times you have to stand up and sit back down. And now I can glue or iron, depending on your process, all at the same time. And now that we have all of the different sections pieced, we are ready to assemble. This is a very quick and easy assembly. Now that we have all of our sections ready, we can chain piece our sections. So as you can see from our directions, we're going to put A to B, and then C to D, and then A, B to C, D. So nice, straightforward, simple. You should be getting familiar with recognizing where you need to stick your straight pins, but just a reminder, I would stick them connecting the changes in color. So when you're doing A to B and C to D, it's going to be right at the point where your orange and your white line up, so that the orange and white look like they are continually going from one section to another. And then you're going to repeat. Now, when I was piecing the sections, you might have noticed that I used the cut mechanism on my Janome machine. Not all machines are going to have that. And with traditional chain piecing, you actually don't cut in between pieces. I find that it's easier when it's more of a group piecing for me instead of chain piecing. But if you're gonna do chain piecing, you're just gonna sew just like this. And instead of stopping after you're done sewing your line, you're just going to feed the next piece directly in. Now I'm reaching the edge of this section, so I'm just going to sew straight through it and off the paper. And then I can take my next section and just feed it right on in. And so I can cut after that. And now that I'm finished, I have a tiny little itty bitty tail connecting my two pieces, and I just simply cut that apart. And you can do this at any time when you're quilting. You can just sew right on past it. You do not have to stop and cut. So if you are completely new to quilting, that might be a new concept for you. For everybody else, you should be very familiar with it. If you're completely new to quilting, you may not be familiar with the idea of nesting seams. When you nest a seam, you are laying seams in different directions so that when you go to line up the block, they kind of fit together like a little interlocking grip. And so what you're just gonna do is iron these seams in different directions. So take A and B and iron the sections towards A. On the back, you'll just iron towards A, or take C and D and iron towards C, so that the seam on the back side goes in opposite directions, and that will create a crease on the front side that's also facing in opposite directions so that they can kind of interlink. And there you have it. This is star number 2